Have you ever heard of Nancy Wake, one of the most decorated women of World War II? She was born in far-off New Zealand, but her story really begins in Australia, where she was raised. A spirited and adventurous young woman, Nancy was not one to be held back by the traditional expectations of her time. Her thirst for adventure and a life less ordinary led her to Europe. By the late 30s, she had carved out a career for herself as a journalist, witnessing the turbulent political climate of pre-war Europe firsthand. From the bustling streets of Paris to the rolling hills of Vienna, Nancy's career offered her a front-row seat to the gathering storm. Yet, despite the escalating tensions, the full impact of what was to come remained unimaginable. Little did she know, her life was about to take a drastic turn with the onset of World War II. As the war broke out, Nancy found herself in the heart of the conflict. In the midst of the chaos, she discovered her calling, a purpose fueled by a burning desire for freedom and justice. In the early days of the war, Nancy became an integral part of the resistance, using her intelligence and wit to help people escape from the clutches of the Nazis. She was not a soldier, nor a spy, at least not in the traditional sense, but she was a fighter, and her weapon was her mind. She became a lifeline for those desperate to get out of Nazi-occupied France. She would guide them through treacherous terrain, along hidden paths, always one step ahead of the enemy. The risks were high, but Nancy was fearless. She was driven by a sense of duty, a belief that she could make a difference, and she did. Her actions earned her a nickname that would become legendary, the White Mouse. The moniker was a testament to her cunning and her ability to slip through the tightest of nets, seemingly invisible to the enemy. It was a name that instilled hope in those she helped and fear in those she opposed. But Nancy was not just the White Mouse. She was a woman of many talents, and she used them all to the fullest. She was a communicator, a negotiator, and a strategist. She was a beacon of light in the darkest of times, a symbol of resistance against a force that seemed unstoppable. Nancy's intelligence and courage were her greatest assets, but they also made her a target. The Gestapo, the Nazi secret police, were aware of her activities and were determined to stop her. They dubbed her the White Mouse and put a bounty on her head. They hunted her, but she always managed to evade capture. She was the White Mouse, always one step ahead, always out of reach. However, her activities didn't go unnoticed, making her a target of the Gestapo. Despite the danger, Nancy never wavered. She remained steadfast, her spirit unbroken. She was the White Mouse, and she was the embodiment of resistance. In 1943, the Gestapo was closing in, and Nancy had to escape. As the walls tightened around her, Nancy Wake made a daring escape, leaving behind the life she had built in France. Over the Pyrenees and into Spain she fled, eventually making her way to Britain. In the heart of the war, Britain was a beacon of resistance, a stronghold against the Nazi regime. Here, Nancy received training from the Special Operations Executive, or the SOE, an organization crafted for espionage, sabotage, and reconnaissance. Her training was grueling, demanding both physical and mental resilience. She learned the arts of silent killing, covert communication, and survival in enemy territory. Once her training was complete, Nancy was parachuted back into France, deep into the belly of the beast. She was tasked with coordinating the Maquis, a group of guerrilla fighters working against the German occupation. With her at the helm, they wreaked havoc on the enemy, blowing up bridges and railway lines, disrupting supply routes, and providing invaluable intelligence to the Allies. But the war was not without its personal cost for Nancy. While she was away, her husband, Henri Fiocca, was captured by the Gestapo. Despite brutal torture, he refused to give them any information about Nancy. His bravery was met with a tragic end. Henri was executed by the Gestapo, his love for Nancy ultimately costing him his life. The loss of her husband was a blow to Nancy, but it did not deter her from her path. If anything, it steeled her resolve, made her fight even harder. She became a force of nature, a whirlwind of resistance against the Nazi oppression. Her courage, her leadership, and her indomitable spirit earned her the respect and admiration of those she led and those she fought against. Despite the personal loss, Nancy didn't waver in her commitment to the fight against the Nazis. She had a mission, a purpose, and she pursued it with relentless determination. In the face of adversity, Nancy Wake stood tall, a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. Back in France, Nancy was not just a member of the resistance, but a leader. Indeed, she was a force to be reckoned with. Nancy Wake held a pivotal role in the resistance, taking charge of over 7,000 Maquis troops, most of whom were men. Her leadership was not merely symbolic, but tactical and hands-on. She led with an iron will, an unyielding spirit, and a strategic mind that was second to none. Nancy Wake was not only a leader, but she was also a saboteur par excellence. She and her troops worked tirelessly to disrupt Nazi operations. They sabotaged railways and bridges, cut German supply lines, and even ambushed German patrols. Under Nancy's formidable leadership, the Maquis caused significant damage to the German forces, effectively slowing their advance and giving the Allies a fighting chance. One of Nancy's most significant achievements was leading her troops through a successful attack on a Gestapo headquarters. This was no mean feat. The Gestapo was the Nazi secret police, a force that was feared and loathed in equal measure. Yet, Nancy and her troops took them head-on. Armed with courage, determination, and a strategic plan, they stormed the headquarters, causing significant damage and striking a blow at the heart of the Nazi operation. Nancy's bravery was legendary. She was fearless in the face of danger, often putting herself in harm's way to protect her troops. Her courage was an inspiration to those around her, galvanizing them to fight harder and resist with all they had. Her strategic mind was equally impressive. Nancy was a master tactician, always thinking several steps ahead. She planned her operations meticulously, considering every possible outcome and preparing for it. Her strategies were so effective that they often left the enemy reeling, unable to predict or counter her moves. Nancy's impact was undeniable, and she was a thorn in the side of the Nazis. She was a woman who defied the norms, who fought tooth and nail for what she believed in, and who left an indelible mark on history. Nancy Wake, the guerrilla leader, was a beacon of hope in a time of darkness, a symbol of resistance against tyranny and oppression. When the war ended, Nancy Wake was one of the most decorated servicewomen of the war. Her courage and tenacity had not gone unnoticed. She was showered with accolades from nations far and wide, all acknowledging her invaluable contribution to the cause of freedom. In the United States, she was awarded the Medal of Freedom, a prestigious honor given to those who have made significant contributions to the security and national interests of the country. In Britain, she was bestowed with the George Medal, the second highest civil decoration, acknowledging her bravery in non-combat situations. France, the country she had fought so valiantly for, recognized her efforts with the Croix de Guerre, awarded 3 times over, the Médaille de la Résistance, and the Légion d'honneur, the highest French order of merit. And lastly, her homeland, Australia, honored her with the Companion of the Order of Australia, an acknowledgement of her eminent achievement and service. But Nancy's life didn't slow down once the medals stopped coming. After the war, she chose to delve into the world of politics. She ran for office in Australia, not once, but twice. However, despite her popularity and the respect she had earned, she was not successful in her bid. But ever the fighter, she was not deterred by these setbacks. She chose to retire in England, living a quiet life far removed from the tumultuous years of her youth. Yet she never forgot her experiences during the war. She used her voice to share her stories, ensuring the world would remember the sacrifices made and the battles fought for freedom. And so, Nancy Wake's story is one of courage, intelligence, and resilience. It's a tale that traverses the battlefield to the political arena, from receiving the highest honors to enduring the sting of defeat. It's a story that reminds us that heroes come in many forms, and their deeds often extend beyond the battlefield. Nancy Wake, a woman of courage, intelligence, and resilience, left an indelible mark on history. So, who was Nancy Wake? A woman of exceptional courage, an embodiment of resilience, and a beacon of hope during one of the darkest periods in history. Born in Australia, Nancy Wake became a pivotal figure in the French resistance during World War II. Her audacity and tenacity made her a formidable adversary to the Nazis, earning her the respect and admiration of allies worldwide. She was a woman who dared to defy, who chose to resist when the world was falling apart. Her bravery was not left unnoticed. France, The United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, and other nations bestowed upon her their highest honors, making her one of the most decorated women of the conflict. Her story is a reminder of the indomitable human spirit, of the power of one individual to make a difference. Nancy Wake, a fearless leader, a heroine, and one of the most decorated women of World War II, reminds us of the power of courage and resilience in the face of adversity.